In 2003, a doctor sat down across from one of the wealthiest men on the planet and told him he had a tumor. He was worth over $1 billion. He could buy almost anything on earth. He could not buy one more guaranteed year. That man was Steve Jobs, and what he did in the years after that diagnosis changed how an entire generation of the ultra-wealthy think about money. Not as something to hoard, but as something to trade for the only asset that was actually running out: time. Here's the uncomfortable question this video is going to leave you with. If billionaires, people who solve the money problem completely, spend their final years obsessed with time, not wealth, what exactly are you saving your time for? Stay with me for the next 13 minutes. I'm going to walk you through the actual spending psychology of the ultra-rich, the real pattern behind the yachts and the minimalism and everything in between. And by the end, you'll have 5 moves you can make this week on any income starting today. Quick disclaimer before we go further: this isn't a video about hustle culture, and it's not think like a billionaire and you'll get rich. That's not the lesson here. The lesson is narrower and honestly more useful. Billionaires are the only group of humans who have run the full experiment of removing money as a constraint. And what they did next tells us something true about all of us. So here's the shape of the next 13 minutes. First, we kill the myth of how billionaires actually spend, because it's not what Instagram shows you. Then 3 real stories, 3 completely different paths to the same conclusion. Then the climax, the single moment that shows up almost word for word in interview after interview with the ultra-wealthy. And finally, the part that actually matters to you: 5 ways to apply this lesson without needing 9 zeros in your bank account. Chapter 2, the myth versus the pattern. Let's start with what billionaires don't spend most of their money on: stuff. Yachts and mansions make headlines because they're visual. But talk to people who actually study ultra-high net worth behavior, and a different pattern emerges, one that has nothing to do with showing off. They buy back time, not things. Warren Buffett, one of the richest people alive, still lives in the same modest house in Omaha that he bought in 1958, decades before he was worth a fraction of what he is now. He didn't upgrade the house, he upgraded what he did with his day. That's the tell. The richer people get, the more money gets redirected toward removing friction, not adding luxury. A private jet isn't really about comfort. It's about not losing 6 hours of your one life to a security line. They shift spend from things to experiences. Here's something researchers have found again and again across income levels, not just billionaires. Past a certain point, buying objects gives you a spike of happiness that fades fast. Buying experiences, a trip, a class, a dinner with people you love, gives you something that doesn't just fade slower. It actually seems to grow. The story gets better every time you tell it. The car just gets older. They start treating attention as the real currency. Watch how the ultra-wealthy guard their calendars. Meetings get cut to 15 minutes. Assistants exist mainly to filter out anything that doesn't matter. Not because their time literally costs a specific dollar figure, but because they've done the math on something scarier. Money can be made again. Time cannot. None of these 3 patterns require $1 billion to copy. Keep that in mind. We'll come back to it. Chapter 2, 3 people, 3 paths, 1 answer. Theory is easy to nod along to and forget by tomorrow. So let's make this real with 3 very different stories. Story 1, the one who never moved. Warren Buffett could own 100 houses on 5 continents. He owns one in the same town he grew up in. Ask him why, and the answer isn't frugality for its own sake. It's that he identified early what actually compounds in life: relationships, reputation, knowledge, time doing work he loves. A bigger house doesn't compound. It just needs more cleaning. Story 2, the one who got the warning. Steve Jobs didn't arrive at this lesson through discipline. He arrived through fear. Facing his own mortality after his diagnosis, he later described death as the best tool he'd ever found for cutting through everything that didn't matter: other people's opinions, pride, the fear of embarrassment or failure. Almost everything falls away in the face of death, he said, leaving only what's actually true. He didn't need the diagnosis to know life was short. He needed it to actually feel it. And that gap between knowing something and feeling it is exactly where most of us are stuck right now. Watching this video. Story 3. The one who just noticed not every billionaire needed a crisis to get here. Chapter 3. The climax. Here's the moment. The one beat that shows up, almost word for word, across dozens of interviews with the ultra-wealthy when you ask them what actually changed how they live. It's never the first million. It's never the IPO bell. It's never the yacht christening. It's the funeral, or the diagnosis, or the 3 a.m. phone call. It's the exact moment they understood, not intellectually but physically in their chest, that no wire transfer, no matter how large, could buy back a single day they had already burned. Steve Jobs called facing death the best tool he'd ever found for making the big decisions, because it strips away everything that isn't real and leaves you with only what actually is. That's the climax of every one of these stories. Not a celebration, a reckoning. And here's the part that should actually unsettle you. You don't need a diagnosis to have that moment. You're having a version of it right now. You've spent the last several minutes hearing over and over that time is the one thing you can't buy back. And some part of you already knew that. You just haven't let yourself act on it yet. Chapter 4, the trap. Before we get to what to actually do, one warning, because there's a trap hiding inside this whole video, and it catches smart people specifically. The trap is turning life is short into an excuse to do nothing differently. It's easy to watch a video like this, feel something for 90 seconds, nod, and then go right back to the same week you were already living, because the feeling itself gets mistaken for the change. Billionaires who actually act on this lesson don't just feel it once. They build it into a system, a recurring check, a standing question, a habit, because they know the feeling fades by Tuesday. That's exactly what the next section is. Not inspiration, but a system. Chapter 5, the 5 moves. So, how do you actually spend like a billionaire without being one? 5 moves. All 5 cost nothing to start. 1. Audit your time like it's a bank statement. At the end of this week, write down where your hours actually went. Not where you meant them to go, where they went. Billionaires guard calendars the way most people guard passwords. If you find 6 hours a week disappearing into something you can't even remember afterward, that's not a small leak. Over a year, that's an entire month of your life gone to nothing. 2. Buy back friction before you buy luxury. You don't need a jet. You need to find the one recurring hour in your week you dread and ask what it would take, even something small and cheap, to remove it. Maybe it's paying a little extra for grocery delivery instead of losing 90 minutes every Saturday. Maybe it's finally automating the bill you manually pay every month. Small, but it compounds. 3. Shift new spending from objects to experiences. Next purchase you're about to make, pause and ask, will I remember owning this in 5 years? Or would I remember doing something instead? This doesn't mean never buy things. It means noticing that the closet full of stuff you stopped seeing months ago never once made the highlight reel of your life. But the weekend trip you almost didn't take probably still does. 4. Use mortality as a filter, not a fear. Once a week, Sunday night is a good time. Ask Steve Jobs' question. If this were my last year, would I still be spending my time this way? If the honest answer is no too often, that's your signal. This isn't about panic. It's a filter. Run on a schedule the same way you check a bank balance, not something you only think about in a crisis. 5. Protect your attention like it's your last dollar. Every scroll, every low-value meeting, every notification is a small withdrawal from the one account that never refills. Start saying no to what doesn't compound. Try it for 1 week. Turn off the notifications that don't come from an actual human, and notice how much longer your days suddenly feel. Billionaires didn't uncover some hidden secret you don't have access to. They just ran out of things money could still buy them. So all that was left to notice was the truth that was there the whole time. You don't need 70 years, a fortune, and a diagnosis to get the lesson early. Life is short, not as a cliche on a coffee mug, as a fact you can act on this week. Chapter 6, Call to Action. If any part of this landed, tell me in the comments. One thing you're going to stop putting off starting this week. And if you want more of these, the real psychology behind how the ultra-wealthy actually think, not the yachts, subscribe. That's exactly what this channel is built on.